What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019, and hump day, middle of the weekday, starting that long, slow glide down to Powhatan Friday. We have a lot to talk about today. There's a lot going on in the world. It's getting kind of crazy out there. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Sam is in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, and ready to answer the phone when you call on in. So let's get right on into it here. A lot of people are still talking about the Syrian withdrawal, which does not seem to be happening. And there was an interesting little article over at Anti-War about how President Bolton gets his way. So I'm not the only one who is thinking that Trump is no longer in control, especially when it comes to foreign policy, that Mike Pompeo and John Bolton are basically doing what they want to do here. And apparently the Associated Press was reporting that John Bolton is trying to undo the decision to withdraw U.S. forces from Syria. And according to 7 administration officials, Bolton was central to the, quote, reinterpretation of Trump's initial order and convincing the stubborn commander-in-chief to go along with it. And again, it shows us, Trump is a weak leader. He doesn't stand his ground, and he's too easily manipulated here. And, Bolton is just running around here like he's in charge. And what was really interesting, when he traveled to Israel and Turkey earlier this month, he brought his own press pool along with him on this Boeing 757, typically used by the Vice President and Secretary of State. So this guy is acting like he's really in charge. And, of course, with Bolton at the steering wheel, we're headed straight for war with Iran, because that is a big part of his agenda. It's a big part of Israel's agenda. And, last Sunday, Trump tweeted out, "Stop the endless wars." Well, Donald, you're the guy who can do it. You're supposed to be in charge. Bolton is supposed to do what you tell him to do. Where is that strong executive we saw on The Apprentice? The one who would stand there and say, "You're fired." Where did that guy go? That's what I want to know. Or, after Trump won the election, did they lock him in a cabin someplace and go over to Westworld and make a new Donald Trump who was easy to manipulate? Because I don't know what's going on here, but Trump has definitely lost control of the administration. And that's a danger, because you've got the neocons are basically back in charge. They're basically back in charge. Now, interestingly enough, the New York Times revealed on Monday that President Trump had questioned, apparently in private and on several occasions, whether America should continue being a member of NATO. And, of course, then the New York Times basically went into its usual thing about how NATO has deterred Soviet and Russian aggression for 70 years, which is not exactly true. In fact, NATO right now is clearly the aggressor in a lot of what's going on in the world here. But apparently, in response to that article, yesterday, in an overwhelming vote, 357 to 22, the House of Representatives voted overwhelmingly to pass the NATO Support Act, which expressed congressional support for the alliance and forbids any funding for any move by the U.S. to withdraw from NATO. Now, that tells you where the Democrats are. Well, with that kind of a vote, members of Congress, oh yes, we've got to stay in NATO. We've got to stay involved in the wars. Well, the U.S. uses NATO for a lot of what they're doing out there. There are a couple of problems here. Membership in NATO is foreign policy, and that belongs in the executive branch, not the legislative. Second, of course, is this can't be any law without the Senate voting through a similar bill, and of course Trump would have to sign it, and I don't think he's going to do that. But apparently this bill just soared through the Congress. It went from introduction to passage so fast it wasn't even available on the congressional website. They just ramrodded this one through. So Congress, the war machine, they're definitely afraid that too many people want to stop the wars for the military-industrial complex to be comfortable. So they're out there just trying to lock it down, lock it in, say, we are a war power, we're a war country, we're in a war economy, we're a war nation. You know, get used to it, live with it, get your children ready to serve in the armed forces. Now, over in Iraq, their lawmakers are pushing for a timeline for the U.S. to get out. The United States the U.S. government has been in Iraq now for 15 years. And Iraq wants them out. There was an agreement for an extended stay of forces that's expired. And the people of Iraq just don't want the U.S. forces in there anymore. So Iraq is out saying we've got to talk about a timeline for the U.S. troops to leave Iraq. But as we can see from Syria, if the U.S. wants to stay, they're going to stay. Same thing with Afghanistan, 17 years, going on 18 here. And so a lot of the Shiite parties in Iraq have problems with this open-ended U.S. military presence in Iraq. And some analysts are trying to pass this off as, oh, this must be Iran. You know, only Iran would object to having U.S. forces in Iraq. But the reality is the U.S. is openly hostile to the Shiite militia groups who have substantial political influence. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network here. Now, speaking of Afghanistan, the United States has admitted that its envoy met with Taliban representatives in Qatar, and that Washington is trying to negotiate an end to the 17-year-old war in Afghanistan. And apparently they've officially met 4 times since July to find a negotiated settlement to the war in the embattled country. Well, I know what the Taliban is going to say. Get out. Just take your bombs and your airplanes and your soldiers and your guns and get on out. And, of course, what the United States is going to want is a guarantee about that pipeline right-of-way at the current price, you know, for that right-of-way. And I'm sure in a back-channel discussion, continued access to the opium. And that may be a sticking point because the Taliban does not like the opium trade. In fact, when the Taliban was in charge of Afghanistan following the ejection of the Soviet Union, they all but eradicated opium production in Afghanistan. If you were caught with a poppy, man, they'd take your hand off. A bit draconian, but it did work. And then as soon as the United States invaded, the poppies were blooming all over the place. There were bumper crops, and cheap opium began to flood into the United States, both to the street dealers and to the pharmaceutical industries, which has led to the opioid crisis in this country. Money, 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 money. Legalized, heroin sales is what's going on here. So the U.S. is going to want that to continue, and the Taliban is going to say no. And that may be probably the biggest sticking point here. But apparently the United States is realizing they have been there too long. And you also have the American people. The American people voted for Donald Trump in 2016 primarily on his promise to get us out of all these foreign entanglements. Of course, we also voted for Obama in 2008. When he said he was going to end the war in Iraq and bring our boys home. And you can take that to the banks. That's what he said in his campaign speeches. And at this point, it almost seems like it almost doesn't matter who's in the White House anymore. The war machine goes on and on and on, and people are being killed. Over in Italy, Matteo Salvini is out there in support of the Yellow Vest protests, hoping the French people can rid themselves of the terrible leadership of President Macron. And apparently this is a continuation of this ongoing feud between Salvini and Macron. But he's out there saying the French people can do better than Macron. And at this point, I'm inclined to agree with him. The Yellow Vest protests have a legitimate point there. It was sparked by this global warming fuel tax, but it also tapped into a lot of other discontent that's been just simmering right under the surface for a very long time, including the open borders, the refugee problems, the French government under Macron basically ignoring the will of the French people. Getting on over into Germany, we may see a new Yellow Vest movement there, because even though the fuel tax last November, which has now been rescinded, started the Yellow Vest protest, Germany didn't get the memo, and they are now talking about trying to meet EU climate change reduction goals, and among them is a fuel tax starting in 2023, along with a speed limit on the Autobahn, lifting Germany's exemption on taxes for diesel fuel cars and quotas for electric and hybrid vehicles. Now, this is going to anger a lot of people. The Autobahn is about the only place that normally reserved Germans can let loose. They're very proud of the Autobahns. They're very proud of the fact that they're allowed to drive at any speed their car will be able to go up to. And as far as this electric vehicle quota, where they're going to mandate so many of these must be sold. Can you imagine a German going on into a dealership and looking at the shiny new BMW and the salesperson saying, well, no, actually, the government says you have to buy this electric car over there. All right, we got some callers on the line. Let's start with Tim in Texas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Howdy, howdy. Hey, it looks like President Trump has got past the 30-day rule mark.
Yes.
You know what that is?
Yeah, I know exactly what that is. There doesn't seem that he's going to do anything with that just yet. But yeah, he's got that option. He could exercise the reduction in force.
I guess he can send out letters.
He may, if he's done that. It hasn't hit the news media yet.
Well, he didn't go to Switzerland because it would. He could be doing that in the United States, and he'd be out of state. That's probably why he didn't go.
Possible, but I think Trump is trying to basically sell the message that he's staying in Washington, D.C. to try and resolve all these issues. There's the shutdown and the border wall crisis. And now there's this whole mess with the State of the Union, where apparently Speaker Pelosi, I'm going to call her Petty Pelosi, has disinvited the president from delivering the State of the Union in the House chamber. And that is a horrible slap in the face and a breach of protocol. And it's just one more example of Pelosi's spiteful, vindictive nature. So Trump, of course, is going to give the State of the Union speech. He's probably going to do it from the Oval Office, and which means we won't have to, deal with all the members of Congress, banging their hands or booing or everything else that they're going to do here. But it really is very, very petty of Pelosi to have done this.
And also, Google a 30-day rule, and you can find it. Also, are you utilizing a senior executive service?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the senior executive service.
I guess it says they can't fire anybody, but when he gets to 30 days, he can.
Well, there's a bit of a problem. There's a bit of a problem, and we had another caller who called in about this one. The process for a reduction in force has to follow a set of rules, which include things like seniority, and how high up in the bureaucracy that you are. So the reduction in force is going to hit the lower downs, the newcomers, the people who just started in the government. They would be the ones who'd be let go. Trump does not have the authority to fire specific individuals under the reduction in force rules. He's got the authority to fire specific individuals within his administration. And frankly, I think he ought to be firing John Bolton right about now.
Good point. Anyway, it's like this. Google those, and you can find some stuff on there to start studying.
No, I've already studied up on it, which is why I know that the wrong people would be let go in a reduction in force if Trump were to do that.
Possible. I'm going.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Tim. We're going to switch over to Jim in Michigan. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Doing fine.
How is your lovely lady doing? She getting better, my friend?
She is getting much, much better, yes.
Glad to hear that. And I would just like to say that as far as climate change, there's Lord Monckton, okay?
Oh, yes, very familiar with him.
But he just put out, as far as the mathematical equation, okay, that the show that the model that they're using right now, and if you can go to Lord Monckton, and you could actually just put out the equation they're using is
it's flawed.
Minus certain things.
Yeah, it's flawed.
Because back they're going from 1800, 1865, but they're not talking about the particulates that are in the atmosphere normally, okay? And they are not even putting the sun into the equation. I think the sun has a lot to do with climate change or whatever, So, anyways, but they show, if you go on the internet and look at Lord Monckton, and he has all these climatologists and physicists and mathematicians and everybody that show that the equation they use to prove global warming is not really right. I mean,
it's a hoax. I mean, remember the ClimateGate scandal where a whole bunch of material was leaked out from the Hadley Climate Research Unit at the University of East Anglia, and it included the source code for the computer simulations. And looking at the code, you could see they were rigging it. It was rigged. Starting at a certain year, and for every year thereafter, the computer code was adding to the temperature numbers to produce the hockey stick. It was a complete fake from the beginning. And now, of course, we're here dealing with winter storms Indra and Harper. Boston is now having record cold. It's turning out to be another very hard winter. And remember back in 2000, they were saying snowfalls are a thing of the past. It's a hoax. It's a hoax, and they're still trying to push this. The corporate media is back out there saying that global warming is causing the polar vortex, and global warming is causing colder winters, which is an utterly ridiculous and unsupportable claim.
But the thing about Lord Monckton is that he showed that the equation they used to prove global warming was flawed, and
yes.
And they did that, but you know what? They have this climate control thing going on in Europe, and you know how many people? I mean, they had 1,500 jets bringing all those people in. I'm going, oh my God! That's a lot of carbon, in the atmosphere, but everybody who's at that climate change symposium is flying in with one person on one jet. So, and again, it has nothing to do. And Al Gore.
Oh well, because their carbon is good and our carbon is bad. That's, and they. Yeah, it really is. It's hypocritical.
And Al Gore bought a house on the ocean.
Yes, he did. So much for rising sea levels. Anyway, Jim, I'm sorry to do this to you. We got to let you go here. We're going to do a break for commercials. Back with another caller after these few words.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And for those who would like to support Republic Broadcasting, and Republic Broadcasting does need your help. We're not getting money from George Soros. We're not getting money from the corporate networks. We basically, we're supported by our listeners, and we really do need your help. The postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. And the network thanks you. Okay, back to the phones. We're going to talk to Steve Elkins. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I watched a little bit of C-SPAN today, and of course the GOP was giving you all the positive benefits of a border security wall, and of course no deficits, no negatives on it. But not sure it's really going to matter to anybody who's on the Democratic Party. But I do believe this has become a little game of chicken. Who's going to swerve first? And I don't see Donald Trump swerving, nor should he swerve. If he does lose this battle, he will lose all respect of his base and basically hand over the Democrats great control and great power. I think he's going to win this one if he sticks it out. I think he should just continue on path. And after winning this battle, I do believe he should move on to dismantling the fraudulent voter system, because that's exactly what the Democrats have in mind with open borders, grabbing more illegal votes to win elections. So I think it's a good thing. Win the first battle and take on the voter election system.
Well, Trump has had 2 years to take on the corrupt voter system, and all he did was he basically disbanded his commission on election integrity and assigned the project to the Department of Homeland Security. And all the Department of Homeland Security has done so far is make sure that nobody is hacking into the electronic voting machines, which they don't need to, because the electronic voting machines arrived from the factory already rigged. And so he dropped the ball on it, and he's going to pay for it in 2020. Now, you're right. He's got another 2 years to try and fix it. Actually, 1 year, if you really think about it, because, starting in 2020, the primary season is going to start early, and the rigging begins with those primaries. So if Trump is really going to do something about the election system in this country, he's got to do it in the next year. And one of the first things he's got to do, and he should have done this when he still had GOP control of the Congress, a national voter ID law.
Agree. No, I totally agree. I think he missed a great opportunity when he lost control of the Congress there, the majority. He missed a great opportunity to get that thing going. Big mistake. He's made a lot of mistakes. And
yes.
You ask yourself, is it just because he's a novice at this, or is this purposeful? What's the agenda here? But
well, I'm
sure
going to go with
runs
novice.
His corporations.
I'm going to go with novice.
His corporations a little stronger than he does than he does his country.
Yeah, well, corporations are a completely different entity than government, and that, I think, was where Trump really fell down. He thought he was going to come into the White House and he was going to run it like a business. Washington, D.C. doesn't work like that. Washington, D.C. Works like the high school socias, the cliques, the rich kids who get away with everything. And it's definitely not businesslike. I mean, look, how much have they misplaced now? $21 trillion. They can't even find it. It's not businesslike. It's basically a country club.
Yeah, I would like to know whose hands are on that $21 trillion, but they don't want to know. There's a lot of dirty hands on that $21 trillion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are now open. Getting on back to Syria, as you know, John Bolton has succeeded in derailing Trump's promise of a troop pullout. We're going to be staying in Syria, and it may be partly to threaten Iran. It may be partly to, again, try and find some way to bring Assad down. It may be partly to reinforce that if Syria is going to rebuild from the war, that they will borrow the money from U.S. banks and employ U.S. contractors. But for whatever reason, they're going to be there. But apparently Blackwater is now drooling over the fact that the U.S. should pull their 2,000 troops out of Syria and replace them with Blackwater mercenaries. So Eric Prince was over on Fox Business making his pitch, and it's a very controversial. They're basically mercenaries. They were banned from Iraq after shooting a bunch of civilians. Now they want to go into Syria and I guess shoot civilians there. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. As most of you know, my regular listeners, I offer energy cleaners for sale at my website. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, go to my website, thelibertyman.com, educate yourself about these marvelous healing devices. We focus on pain mitigation and getting a great night's sleep. Arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, doesn't matter. Keep in mind, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. Energy cleaners, $285, shipping included, American zip codes. You can educate yourself all about the energy cleaner right there at my website, the patent application, the wonderful testimonials. Be sure and check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads to go with the energy cleaner. Now, I offer from me to you personally a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do. I have a toll-free order line, or you can order it right at my website at thelibertyman.com. The toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Thank you.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, the panic is on. Can't get no way, can't draw no pay. Unemployment getting worse.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the international. Well, actually, we have a caller on the line. So let's go to Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I got a call from the Republican Party asking me for money the other day on Martin Luther King's birthday. And I told him, I said, I support Trump, but I don't support the leadership of the Republican Party. I mean, look what I said, a guy like Steve King, he gets thrown off the committees. You're trying to run him out of the House of Representatives. I said, I'm like Steve King. I'm a white man. And I think, it's very insulting for you to do that to a white constituent just because he said something which isn't even bad. He didn't say anything wrong. I mean, and he should be able to say something wrong anyway. I mean, you have new congressmen, Democrats saying the MF word and nothing's happened about it. But I think what it goes to show is why with these young kids going to Washington, don't let your kids go to Washington. I mean, what they're showing is that the old timers were right. Segregation now, segregation forever. I'm sorry, these white Catholic kids can't even go to the Lincoln Memorial without having a bunch of crazy black, Israelites attacking them. They can't have an Indian come up and knock a freaking drum in their face. They sit there stoically, don't do anything, don't raise their fists or do anything, and they're lambasted, and now they're being terrorized and threatened.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, the parents and the school should know better. Washington's a cesspool. You, as a conservative white man or a Christian, you are the most hated thing in the world in Washington, D.C. And the Republicans just showed it in what they did to Steve King. They sit there and do lip service to the evangelicals and the Catholics. But I got news for you. They hate your guts. They hate your guts. And I know it. And these people should. I hope this whole lesson of what happened to these Covington kids lights a fire under Catholics in particular, and lets them know that these people are your enemy. These people hate your guts. And when you shouldn't send your kids there, the only reason that I'm glad about what happened to these kids, because it's a wake-up call. It should wake up every kid, and it should wake up all the white kids, and it should wake up all the white parents who basically, if they should not let their kids go into these cities and be subjected to this kind of abuse, because they won't be protected. They won't be protected by the police. If anything, they'll be on the news, and it'll be edited, and they'll be demonized, threatened. So basically, I hope that they sue the hell out of all these reporters and bring them into Kentucky's courts, and bring them into Tennessee courts, and bring them into Middle American courts, and sue the hell out of these people. But I want the public to know, and I think white people should know this: these people in Washington, D.C. hate white Christian, and if you're a man, it's even worse. And they hate your guts. And
I mean, that's been made very, very obvious. That's part of the liberal agenda, and it's almost like we're going through a demographic replacement in this country, where they want to get the white people out and flood this country with all these other people coming in from basically everywhere else. And we know that that's part of the New World Order plan. That's part of the globalist plan to blur everyone together. I think that the multi-generational Americans should be feeling very insulted and alarmed that they have become a target. That literally we're heading into the same territory that we saw down in Zimbabwe and now are seeing in South Africa, where whites are being targeted, displaced, their property being seized and redistributed. And we know that the liberal Democrats are pushing for hard socialism. I mean, just listen to what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is out there saying. That they want a socialist agenda. And everywhere that socialism has been tried, it's been an absolute disaster, except for those at the very, very top. It's funny how both socialism and fascism seem to wind up the same way, with a very few ultra-rich and everybody else extremely poor.
Well, Mike, I think what's going to happen, and what my point about the segregation is, we have to self-segregate. You can't live amongst these people. If you want, like when I lived in Norfolk, Virginia, and before I went to Norfolk, Virginia, I was very open-minded. And then after living there for 10 years, I had to get out. And it was because I had two stepdaughters that were very attractive, and I didn't want them to get into trouble with the wrong kind of people. And now I'm in Tennessee, and I was living in Florida in a very nice community, but now I'm totally in a great community. And it's Rocca the world here. And, we're ready for a fight if there's going to be one. And I just want to warn people about letting your kids now, because it's very dangerous. This shows that these kids weren't even doing anything. They were being set up. They were being provoked. They were just hanging out when they went to a pro-life thing. And next thing you know, they're being attacked by these crazy radicals. And that's something you have to avoid for your kids. Now, when you're an adult, you can deal with this in a better way, a smarter way. But even the traps are for adults also. It's a shame. You don't have free speech. You can't talk. Now, I heard Michael Savage the other night, and he was talking about Martin Luther King giving a speech in New York and how these drunk Irishmen were all mad about it. And I think about it, what he was saying. I said, maybe those drunk Irishmen were right, because now if you look at those drunk Irishmen's neighborhoods, they're all slums. You know, and you look at the drunk Irishman schools, and all those schools are probably unsafe, and there's probably rapes in the hallways. So he can sit there and he can talk about the drunk Irishman, but maybe those drunken Irishmen were right about what they knew would come of Martin Luther King and bringing people into their neighborhoods and with government subsidies and destroying neighborhoods. So at the time I listened to it and I thought it was insulting. And now that I see this kind of stuff, I think Michael Savage should apologize to drunken Irishmen because they are right. They were right. Look at these cities. How many cities have been destroyed by these savages? And now you can't even go to the Lincoln Memorial without being attacked. It's enough. But white people have to segregate, get out of those communities.
Well, I think probably a lot of people are going to say, why should we be the ones to have to move? Why should we be driven out of our homes, by this behavior? And again, what is law enforcement supposed to be about? But again, we know that whoever was behind it, what happened at the Lincoln Memorial was clearly staged. It was set up. Those kids were targeted. Somebody went in there with a plan to provoke a reaction from these Catholic kids, get it on video, and go to the news media and say, oh, these white people, they're harassing this poor Native American. And that was the narrative, and they pushed the narrative, and of course the facts simply don't back it on up.
Well, the reason you have to get out, Mike, is because you can't win there. The territory, the land for the battle is so disturbingly left that the police aren't going to stand up for you. The courts won't stand up for you. You will get ruined on that territory. That's why you have to
okay,
move
I think you need to calm down here a little bit because I think looking at the backlash of what happened to those Covington Catholic high school students and what is now happening in the aftermath of the revelation that the story was completely bogus, is going to tell you that in point of fact, it is possible to fight back. There is a pushback going on. So keep listening to the show because we're going to get to that in a little bit later in the program here. So Joe, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Did those black Israelites have a Langley zip code?
They very well might. I'd never even heard of the group, but supposedly they are a religion. They've been around for some years. I think it's the Black Israelite Hebrews is what they call themselves or something like that.
They got some pretty bad potty mouths on them.
Yeah, they do. And that's the interesting thing. The one thing you see in the video, those Catholic kids are very well mannered. They were very stoic. But the agents provocateurs, let's call them what they were out there with the profanity, homophobic slurs, and all kinds of stuff. And then, of course, this Native American group marches on in, banging the drums in their face. They were trying to get a reaction on video. You're going to see this in this age of massive media lies, that people are going they're going to try and provoke the targeted group into a reaction that can be spun by the media as an attack.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to talk about Trump when he comes out and saying the new interim president of Venezuela, and the guy never even ran as president for Venezuela. What's going on with Trump?
Well, I was about to get. I was going to get into that a little bit later as well. But yeah, this is apparently this U.S.-backed opposition leader. Big surprise there. Took an oath of office and has been recognized by the United States and apparently by Brazil as the new interim president of Venezuela. And it's a big, huge stink because this is clearly a case of the United States meddling in the internal affairs of yet another country. And it's another example of U.S. hegemonic hypocrisy. It's okay for us to do it to other countries, but don't you dare do it to us, except for Israel. Israel's allowed to meddle in our internal politics.
And Mike, Maduro was elected twice. You might not like him, but those elections were legitimate. They were overseen. They were deemed legal. So
Yeah,
how
I
can
mean,
Trump come out?
Venezuela's elections are a lot more honest than the ones we have here in this country. But what we have here is the United States and its allies just arbitrarily saying, we don't recognize the result of the election, just like they said they didn't recognize the result of the Crimean referendum. And it's basically an imperial decree. We don't agree. We support democracy only when you elect the people that we like. So this is going to provoke a civil war in Venezuela. And again, Washington, D.C. is talking about an outright invasion.
It's like Brexit. If you don't like the results, vote again. If we don't like those results, vote again. It's the same, like I said yesterday, it's the same playbook. Hey, Mike, did you know Trump's not going to be in the Capitol to do the State of the Union
Yeah, I know.
at all? That's what they're saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
maybe
Nancy
he's gonna get out
Pelosi
of-
was. See, there's a formal process where the House of Representatives, or the Speaker of the House, invites the president to give the State of the Union speech in the House chamber, and Nancy Pelosi has rescinded that invitation, which I think is just being petty and vindictive. It's her way of slapping the president in the face and saying, I'm really in charge of the process here. And it's just a continuing escalation of this standoff over the border wall, which is all about political points. It's not about the border. It's not about immigration. It's not even about the government shutdown. This is now about making political points. And Pelosi is actually losing a lot of support within the Democrats. The moderate Democrats are out there saying this has gone on far enough.
Is this just like another part of the declining, fracturing of this country?
Absolutely.
The West.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, but when's the last time this kind of happened with the State of the Union, like her not approving the state? I mean, this is. I'm 48. I never seen anything like this.
No, I don't think it's ever happened before. I don't think there's ever been a case where the Speaker of the House has refused the president's presence in the House chamber for the State of the Union speech.
And Mike, real quick, I don't know if you heard this story, but the Kurds says that, you ready? They captured al-Baghdadi, which I thought the Russians killed. And if they did capture him, are they going to dump him into the ocean, wrapped up so nobody sees his body?
Probably. What can I tell you? I mean, they claim to have gotten al-Baghdadi how many times now? It's got more lives than a cat.
He's probably back in Israel. Have a good show, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Peter in I'm sorry, Milton in Pennsylvania. Milton, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Michael, I just heard you talking with Pelosi. That was part of my reason of calling. Does she have the power to stop him from doing his State of the Union?
Yeah, well, she can't stop him from making the speech. She can say, you are not welcome in the House of Representatives chamber, which is exactly what she's done.
Well, then he should go ahead and do it, right?
Oh, he's definitely going to do the speech. He'll probably do it from the Oval Office.
Okay, and I had another point here. With the bickering going on with the wall and nobody signing an agreement or anything, with the food stamps, people in my building got letters today that they got their February food stamps in January. And it's like up in the air if they're going to get them March or whatever if the government opened.
Oh, boy.
Now, if the Democrats hold out, all right, and then nobody gets food stamps in March and April, they'll be rioting in the streets.
I absolutely agree. I mean, if Pelosi and Schumer push this a lot further, they're going to wreck their own party, because there'll be so many legal American citizens voting GOP in 2020 that the illegal immigrant vote is going to be insufficient to steal the election.
Yeah. Okay, that was my only thing I wanted to say, because I hear it from within the building here, and a lot of lower class people, and they're talking already, taking to the streets.
Time to get those yellow vests. What can I tell you?
Exactly. Okay, Mike, have a good show. Thank you for talking.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. And Peter, I'm probably going to have to take you through the next commercial break. What's on your mind?
Well, there's a couple things, Mike, but the thing that is getting me is all this stuff with these Catholic kids from Covington, Kentucky, and I think the gentleman that called in just a couple callers ago was for the most part, right. And I'm saying that as somebody who I'm married to a black woman. My child is half black, and the people that I love most in my life are black, or at least not white. But it's totally apparent to me, and has been for 30 years, anyways, that systematically there has been identities of everybody have been built up, Mike, from the Mexican American identity, or Hispanic, to certainly black. Everybody's identity. Everybody's got Hillel for the Jews. They've got a million of them. Everybody's identity is built up, but nobody white is allowed to be proud of their heritage.
Yeah, it's a double standard. I mean, if black people are proud of being black people, it's called black power. Hispanics be proud of being Hispanic, it's called, Hispanic power. If white people are proud of being white, it's called racism. Anyway, stay on the line, Peter. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio, or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Peter in Los Angeles. And Peter, just sort of pick up where you left off.
Well, I've been noticing this for years, Mike, about the this cultural thing about the targets that keeps whites from having any sort of cultural identity, and as a matter of fact, vilifies them to the point where, white privilege is something now that everybody is saying. Every newscaster, every editorial, every writer, it just flows out of their mouths. It's like, it has nothing to do with the fact that we take care of our kids, that we've organized well. We, virtually of all the patents in the world, that probably 90% of them, of the inventions were made by us or the Chinese, anyways. But at any rate, we're made to apologize for everything. And by the way, the Asians, because they're also achievers, they have no identity either. Like they're getting aced out of Harvard. The Jews get in, by the way.
Yeah.
But the Asians don't. And so you look and see on TV where there'll be ads, and almost invariably the white guy, the white male especially, is made to look ludicrous.
Yes.
Or on and on and on. And you got to, and I keep going back to some activist in Sweden, a Jewish woman named Specter, talking about how the Jews are behind and have to be behind, as of course George Soros is, all this mass destruction of the Swedish culture and other European cultures, and who could organize this? Who could legislate this? Who could organize? Who could get all this done, and to whose benefit? Because the only people standing in the way, as we've talked about before, about how they completely control the government, the only people standing in the way of the 1.7% of the population who really are represented by our government are basically the educated white majority who could stand in their way, and so they're not being allowed to organize at all.
Well, that's definitely a big part of what's going on is the divide and conquer here. Getting on back to the segregation issue, the reason I kind of bridle at that a little bit, I mean, obviously I live here in Hawaii, and it's called Polynesia for a reason. We have many different races here. People on this island, we get along pretty good. But it's all multi-generational. People grew up here. We have our own distinct local culture. The problem is that with this open borders and refugees issue, we're bringing in people who don't integrate very well into our culture. They probably weren't very well integrated in their home culture. Migration is, it's a filter. The people who are the best in the home countries, they're still there. They're not going to migrate. They're not going to immigrate. They're happy where they are. So what we're getting are people who couldn't make it in their own country. They're fleeing prosecution. They're carrying contagious diseases. And it's an absolute disaster for the country. And now they're being exploited politically, first of all, by illegal voting, and also to basically carry out this demographic shift of the United States away from its traditional indigenous population. Anyway, Peter, I got to let you go. We got to do a station identification. Boy, the phone lines are really loaded up, and we'll be right back.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring the freedom of speech and preserving the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know we're tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous, and is your #1 source for Ron Paul for President stickers. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will let you get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to libertystickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's libertystickers.com or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2, and the phone lines are loaded up here. Let's go to Rick in New York. Aloha, Rick. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. How you doing? I'm a big fan of the show.
Thank you.
A little while ago, you had this gentleman call up, and he was basically calling black people savages and bashing MLK and talking about how the Irish were drunk and laughing at him. You know, black people did. We were here for hundreds of years. A lot of them are fans of your show. You know, we support you. Why are you letting the guy talk about black people like that? And then the guy, Peter, you said he got a black wife or whatever. But then he's basically agreeing with the guy calling us savages. What is that about?
Well, he wasn't. I don't think it was directed at the black people. I think it was directed mostly at the liberal hysterics, is how I interpreted it to be. Because I think you'll agree with me, looking at the video of what happened to those Covington High School students, that the vast majority of black people don't behave that way. Okay, what we're seeing there is the kind of behavior that we get with these staged confrontational groups that are part of the liberal establishment.
Absolutely. I would agree about that. And initially, when I first saw the video, I said it was teens. They're trying to set these kids up. They're way overblown. And I knew it was going to come back and, be something entirely different. But the black Israelites, those guys were wrong at everything. But they were just practicing their First Amendment rights to speak. The students were right. They did nothing wrong. But the guy Phillips is obviously some kind of provocateur. And I think
we've got some stuff coming up about him. We've got some stuff coming up about him. Anyway, Rick, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. We're going to try and clear the phone lines because I got to get back to news here. Todd in Idaho, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Doing fine.
I've been a listener to your show for probably about 9 years. And today is the first time that I heard you, just like the gentleman from New York said, dude was way out of pocket. He really was way out of pocket. I'm a black man living in Idaho. Southern Idaho is way different than Northern Idaho and Eastern Washington, but that's another thing. And I really felt slighted that, because normally you'll check somebody when they're talking out of line, like dude was. I mean, and I feel like, you lost a slight bit of respect for me because you didn't check him when you should have checked him. I know I'm not here to be the old moral compass person or anything like that, but you, for 9 years I've listened, you've always checked people when they're out of line saying stuff. I mean, he's clearly not that intelligent because he's basing off what 20 people did for the whole race. Because segregation now, segregation forever, pretty much says that he thinks all black people.
Well, again, you're correct. I should have cut in a little bit sooner than I did. I did cut in. But if you heard my conversation with that previous caller, I interpreted his comment about those people to be the people who were behaving that way. And the only reason black came on into it is because they call themselves the Black Hebrew Israelites or whatever it is.
I'm fully aware of the group of the praying to the deities of, the sky. But people like that are what the problem is with America, because they get all emotioned out and then they're like, oh my God, we need segregation now, segregation forever, which is completely ridiculous. I mean, if we, you, as you know, that's what all the black students in the liberal colleges are calling for. So I would say to him, let's not be as ignorant as they are and try to use a little bit more intelligence when we actually think about stuff and not get all emotional like a 13-year-old little girl who likes a boy or something.
Well, you're absolutely right. Hang on a second.
Man, listen to you for 9 years. I listened to Alex Jones. You used to come on after Alex or before. I can't remember. I think after when you were on another network.
Yeah.
And I literally stopped listening to Alex because I was like, wow, here's a guy who doesn't get all emotional and has information instead of, no, you're not going to get us. You know, for me, it just was kind of, I literally was in the shower. I called you while in the shower, soaping up. I just dried my hands off and started calling. Because I was like, no way, Mike, Mike, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
Well, in my defense, I was trying to do multiple things at once, and you're right, I should have cut the guy off a little bit sooner here than I did. Anyway, Todd, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you get back to your shower and switch over to Chris in Florida. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind is what so many of the callers are saying today, and I think that a lot of it is due to the slave stream media, cable TV, satellite TV. So I would say it's past time to cancel your cable TV or satellite TV and to not self-segregate, especially based on the media propaganda, the false division that they emphasize. This partial government shutdown reveals the dependence of the states upon the federal government, which should inspire the states to be more independent, to stop funding the federal government in order to receive back a little bit of that funding, and work, I would say to my fellow citizens, work locally, find alliances locally. If you think that you succeeded by doing this yourself, by self-segregating, then, well, look at your success rate, because we haven't had a lot of success, until we really work locally to prevent the bad policies of the federal and the international governments from coming down to the local level. You have to work locally. Of course, become informed about what's going on in the world.
Yes.
And I'm not against self-segregation. If you want to do that, nothing against that, but it's not a good strategy. If you want to ally with those who agree with you on one issue to stop that issue at the local level, then do so. Even if those allies disagree on several other issues, don't have an aversion to them unless they're violence mongers or they menace other people. Don't fear alliances with those who disagree when you can ally with them on a single issue. And then you forge those alliances with those who disagree. It's a means of dissolving any fear you might have, dissolving any fears they might have of you, becoming more persuasive to each other. And, I hear the guy talking about what's going on in his building. I hear about the caller who was talking about self-segregating. And must point out that for so many, the economic crash has happened already to them, costing their health, their life. So don't wait for politicians to reform economics. Become involved with, promote and participate in equitable commerce media like public, usury-free community currencies, time banks, barter networks, cooperatives, swap shops, and community gardens. And with these, we can defeat usury, ensure abundance, help afford more heirloom quality goods and premium services, allow more time for civic involvement, encourage patient conversation, and trend towards maybe a gifting society even until that's the norm, I believe, is possible. We can whip money changers with minimal physical effort, without conflict even. We can cease feeding those beasts like the warmongers. We can prove we're not dependent, and we can exit from the plantation. So, when you do business with someone, you respect their views, you listen to them, and they listen to you. And if you don't like their views, you can stop doing business with them. But that's a way of boycotting the federal rigged economy. And, when those who are such proponents of socialism or communism, they try to guilt trip us fellow debt slaves into doing with less. So as you say, Michael, the banksters can have more.
Yes.
Well, when they realize the abundance the prosperity as opposed to the disparity that we've experienced, they can imagine this prosperity, then they don't have a motivation to promote that false ideal of socialism or communism.
Yeah, all of that sounds really good. Where it breaks down, and it's the same reason why every governmental system ultimately breaks down, it's human nature. Every system that's ever been invented, every idea that's always come up, is predicated on the idea that all participating members in the system are saints, and sadly that is not true. Most of them may be, but there are going to be bad people, and they're going to cause trouble. And the more powerful they become, the more trouble they cause. Soros is a good example of that. And unfortunately, we have both political parties trying to stir up divides and divisions within our population. The last thing that they want to see happen is for everybody to unite as an American people. That's what they're afraid of. And that may be a big part of the motive why, you know, white heterosexual males are being demonized, and maybe they want to drive us out because they don't want a united American people. They want a polyglot of easily controlled individual groups that can be manipulated, taxed, sent off to war, and so forth. Anyway, thank you very much for the phone call, and we're going to switch over to Joe in California. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. Before I get to two of my main points for calling, I'd like to say that I think President Trump, should invite these Covington students to the White House to really stick it in the eye of these liberals.
There are reports that he has.
Good, excellent. That's one thing that one good thing that President Trump will have done, because he's been a massive disappointment.
Don't get me started.
Oh, yeah. And then, Mike, also, before I get to my 2 points, you know, we keep hearing about this, you know, the government standoff, the government shutdown. Where were the Republicans for the first 2 years? And I knew it was going to happen. I told my brother, we had a conversation on election night. I said, the Republicans are going to accomplish nothing with control of the White House and the control of the House and the control of the Senate. They had control of the entire government. And where was the funding for the wall? Nada, nothing. Now, I hear these people, these Republican voters saying, oh, the Democrats are stymieing President Trump's policy agenda. Well, where were the Republicans the first 2 years?
I agree.
They're on board. They're all globalists. They're on board with this globalist agenda, bringing in all these people, this slave labor for the corporations that bankroll the GOP. I'll tell you what, if the GOP, the Republicans, called me and asking me for money, I would tell them to stick there, you know what, up there, you know what.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you on that one. Trump missed his opportunity to make some change. And what really amazes me is in his own self-interest, he should have at least kept his promise about election integrity. But he's let that one go. And he'll pay for it in 2020.
He's very stupid, Mike. He's very stupid. I saw an interview today on RT with James Jatras, the former diplomat. I believe he worked with the Senate GOP. And this was on RT, and he said, vis-a-vis Venezuela, you know, Trump's been unfairly targeted in this country with no evidence, Russian collusion. Why is he then going after Maduro, who was elected freely and fairly? Why is he then doing the deep state's bidding by going after Maduro? It's pathetic. He's just a very stupid man. Very stupid man, from his personnel decisions to his constant deference in respect of his policies to Israel. He's just been a massive disappointment, And maybe this is good. Maybe this will show those Americans, stupid Americans who love to vote every election cycle, that you shouldn't vote because it doesn't make a difference, because it's two sides of the same coin. They're two sides of the same coin, and I always think back to what you say. Nothing's going to change until this entire rotten edifice collapses.
Well, I think we're coming up on that collapse here. Anyway, Joe, we're going to let you go here, and we're going to close the phone lines here because I got to get to some news here. And we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. As you know, Israel carried out a major attack on Syria, claiming they were attacking Iranian assets, but it turns out that Israel targeted Syria's air defense system. There was a report at the close of yesterday's show that Israeli warplanes were flying along the Israeli-Lebanon border. Syrian air defenses were on alert, but there was no strike. Russia has now issued a statement urging Israel to stop its spontaneous airstrikes on Syria, and basically saying that this must end. This is coming from Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, and earlier today, and said such moves by Tel Aviv only fuel tensions in the region and harm the long-term interest of all regional players, including Israel itself. So Russia, Putin, they're still trying to play peacemaker and get things to calm down. Syria, unfortunately, is going the other direction rhetorically, and they're basically out there. They have gone back to the United Nations Security Council and basically said that if the UN Security Council cannot get Israel to stop, that Israel is going to go after Tel Aviv, because Israel has been striking Damascus, and so Syria is ready to retaliate. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that the UN Security Council can't do anything because of that perpetual United States veto, which always protects Israel no matter what it does. And Syria specifically used the phrase Israel's impunity, and they're absolutely right about that. But Syria is saying they have a legitimate right for self-defense against Israeli aggression. And following the bombing of the Damascus airport, Syria is saying they could target the Tel Aviv airport. Of course, that is exactly what Netanyahu would like to see happen, because then he could really uncork on Syria and become the new tool by which Assad would be removed. Somebody released an email from back in 2012 from the U.S. State Department basically saying, flat out, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. And it's just more evidence pointing to the fact that the United States and its allies control Al-Qaeda and use it for their own purposes, which we've been telling you for a very, very long time. Now, Israel may not have struck Syria, but they did go in and strike Gaza. And as you know, Qatar tried to send some financial aid into Gaza to make up for all the funding that's been cut from the United States, from USAID, from everywhere else. Israel is now blocking that cash from getting on in. So, anyway. Apparently, 56 children were killed by Israeli forces in the occupied Palestinian territories in 2018, 45 of them in the Gaza Strip. In the overwhelming majority of cases, it was impossible to confirm, it was confirmed children did not present any imminent mortal threat or threat of serious injury when shot by the Israeli forces. So basically, Israel is committing war crimes in Palestine. The Israeli army website has listed the state of Judea and Samaria as an option for recruits to list their place of birth. That's Israel's name for the occupied West Bank. Now, Israel has occupied the West Bank since the Six-Day War of 1967, but they're basically starting to treat it like it's their sovereign territory, like they're trying to do down at the Golan. But at this point, it's becoming very obvious tensions are ratcheting up in the region. And there's an article that came out in the Express, basically headlined, World War III, Rapid Military Escalation Occurring Between Iran and Israel. Well, Israel's doing all the shooting and bombing. Iran has done absolutely nothing that threatens Israel. Israel's entire argument is, oh, we can't have Iran sitting so close to us. But Iran, again, is in Syria at the invitation of the legitimate Syrian government. Meanwhile, Israel is continuing. In fact, they're escalating their attempts to purge U.S. college campuses of all critics of Israel and supporters of Palestinian rights. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the international news. We're going to get to the domestic news very quickly here, but there is so much going on in the world right now, and it just feels like the world is spinning into utter chaos. And right now, there is speculation that Russia is trying to broker a deal between Turkey and Syria for a land swap that would basically take the region in Syria held by the Kurds and make it part of Turkey and give an equivalent amount of land and resources from Turkey to Syria. And that might calm things down along that part of the world. And one more time, it basically shows us Putin is a statesman. He's trying to keep things from spinning out of control. And, of course, he's basically up against the U.S. war hawks who want wars everywhere. And now it looks like we're probably going to wind up down in Venezuela. And it's kind of weird because in the movie Avatar, which is still my all-time favorite movie, there's that one line from the commander who says, I see you served in Venezuela. That was some mean bush. And back when that movie was being made, there was no indication that the U.S. was planning to go into Venezuela. And wow, life imitates art. What can I tell you? Still a lot of talk going on about how this Iranian American who was an anchor at Press TV has been basically seized, shackled, and kept imprisoned. She's not charged with a crime. She's 59 years old. She's a grandmother. And for several days, the government even refused to admit that they had her. She was on her way to visit a sick brother, and she was basically grabbed at the St. Louis airport. Finally, a judge partially unsealed the court records, and the government's rationale is that she's been forcibly taken away and imprisoned because she was a material witness to a still unspecified crime. And they viewed her as a flight risk. They want to take her before a grand jury, but they don't say when that's going to happen. Now, unfortunately, material witness is a term which says the government can throw you in jail without having committed a crime if they think you have information. But it can be abused, and I think maybe it's being abused in this particular case, and they've grabbed this woman as a way of putting more pressure on Iran. China is reorganizing their military. They're actually going to cut their ground forces by half. They have a huge, huge ground force, and the resources are going to be used to boost the Navy and Air Force. And I think China is very smart to do that. I don't think China has to worry about a ground invasion of mainland China, but they're probably getting very nervous about U.S. actions around the South China Sea and Taiwan. All right, so let's talk about Venezuela. There is a lot going on down there. The U.S.-backed opposition leader down there, Juan Guaido, I think is how it's pronounced here, basically took an oath as interim president on Wednesday. Basically, the U.S. has anointed this guy. And the U.S. has already issued an official statement saying they recognize Juan as the interim president of Venezuela and that Maduro is illegitimate. Maduro then responded by breaking off all diplomatic relations with the U.S., saying that this is basically an attempt to stage a coup d'etat, which the U.S. has done in Venezuela before. Back when Hugo Chavez was in charge of that country, there was a U.S.-backed coup that drove him from power for exactly 1 week. But Maduro has now given American diplomats 72 hours to leave the country. And Juan, the interim president, is out there telling the American diplomats, no, ignore Maduro's orders to leave the country. You are welcome to stay here. Now, the Venezuelan defense minister, Vladimir Padring, said that the country's military will continue to defend the Venezuelan constitution and national sovereignty and would not accept an imposed president. And of course, basically, this is clearly the U.S. meddling in another country's internal affairs, something that the U.S. condemns when other countries do, when they claim, oh, Russia's meddling in our elections, or Iran is meddling over here, and how bad it, and yet the U.S. is meddling in all these countries around the world here. So Maduro's got the military on his side. So we're going to see what's happened. I imagine the next step is that Maduro might well arrest this leader of the National Assembly and take it from there. But it's an ugly, ugly situation. And, of course, Mike Pence is out there saying that Maduro is this dictator and he's got to go. All right, we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And looking around the world, it is a mess. And there's an article over in Russia Insider which basically says the neocon dream for everlasting hegemony has turned America into a nightmare. And it absolutely has. And they're basically saying this is a throwback to that 1970s era of right-wing Soviet hysteria. And again, they talk about how the U.S. is continuing to say that Russia is meddling in America's democracy. Well, look what the United States just did down in Venezuela. And according to the Dean of American Intelligence Scholars, Locke K. Johnson, as reported in the New York Times, the United States has done extensive meddling in other nations' elections. And not just their elections. Since the end of World War II, the U.S. has worked to overthrow foreign governments, regime change. 1953, they brought down the elected government of Mohammad Mossadegh and installed the Shah of Iran. In 1973, they basically overthrew the democratically elected government of Chile and installed Pinochet, the dictator. Meanwhile, over at the Supreme Court, they have ruled in favor of Trump's transgender military ban on the basis of the fact that allowing transgender people to serve would incur tremendous medical costs and disruption, which I tend to agree with. This ends 2 years of legal wrangling, and interestingly enough, 4 of the court's more liberal justices voted against the military ban. Okay. All right, getting into the domestic politics. Trump is slamming what he describes as a radical Democrat, Pelosi, and yes, she is. And it seems like most of them are. In fact, I got an email from somebody else who says they're also an elder. They're afraid to go to these protest marches. Just looking at the eyes of these social justice warriors, you can see they want violence. They want a fight. Anyway, Trump is describing Pelosi as not seeing the drugs and crime. They're only seeing 2020. So it's basically an open secret everywhere that the Democrats are bringing in the illegal immigrants to vote in the elections. And if Trump understands this, why isn't he doing something about it? Because it is illegal for non-citizens to vote in our elections. That's probably the biggest problem with what's going on in this country right now. There are plenty of laws to keep this nation headed in a good direction, and they're simply being ignored. We're now on day 33 of the shutdown, and I got another email from somebody confirming they too had gotten that letter about not being sure if they're going to get food stamp money in March. 800,000 federal workers are going to miss the second paycheck, and apparently hundreds of IRS employees are skipping work as part of a coordinated protest, and they're taking advantage of a provision which allows them to stay at home if they suffer a hardship. And I'm sure probably a lot of people are not feeling sympathetic about either them or the TSA at this particular point here. Democratic congressman was out there trying to build sympathy for the furloughed workers, saying it's never been legal to make people work for free in this country. He was immediately corrected, of course, that, yeah, at one point, supported by the Democrats, there was an institution of slavery in this country here. GoFundMe has launched its own fundraiser to try and raise money for the federal workers who are not getting paid. I have a hunch they will not get much response on that one. Meanwhile, as I mentioned to one of the callers earlier in the show, a group of moderate Democrats is pushing for Nancy Pelosi to cut a deal with President Trump and end the government shutdown. They're telling her it's time to come to the table with President Trump and offer something, anything, to get the negotiations process going again. I don't see that is happening. Trump has already offered several compromises, and he's been turned down flat by Pelosi. Pelosi doesn't want to compromise. She wants total capitulation. She wants a victory. She wants Trump to fail so they can campaign on that in 2020. She wants those borders kept open. Now, over in the corporate media, we're continuing to see this smearing of ordinary Americans as Russian assets. And this got started all the way back when WikiLeaks provided the evidence that the Democratic National Committee had violated its own charter by rigging its primary for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. And what probably should have happened is the DNC apologizing, and especially to their own voters and donors, become more transparent, possibly a do-over of the primary vote. No, instead, what we got starting back then is everybody who questioned the DNC or Hillary Clinton's campaign, oh, you're working with the Russians. You're part of the Russian, disinformation campaign. If you criticize Hillary Clinton, you're a Russian asset. It's like saying if you criticize Israel, you're an anti-Semite. It's a smear campaign. And if you study the history of the Clintons going all the way back to Arkansas, smearing is what they do best. They call it the politics of personal destruction, but it is smearing. Now, a lot of people are still talking about that embarrassment over at BuzzFeed, where they ran that story claiming that Michael Cohen had testified to the Mueller investigation, that Donald Trump ordered Michael Cohen to lie to Congress, and CNN, MSNBC mentioned Trump impeachment nearly 200 times during the day Friday before the report was discredited by that announcement coming on out from Mueller's own office. And basically, a part that's been left out of the story is the fact that NBC Universal invested $400 million in BuzzFeed, and the two companies have a strategic partnership. So BuzzFeed is definitely part of the corporate media, and they were doing what the corporate media does, which is to keep you disinformed. All right, so let's talk about the Covington Catholic School kids, because I know a lot of people are calling in about that. A lot of people want to know what's going on. Now, the elderly man at the center of all of this, Native American activist Nathan Phillips, has repeatedly misrepresented several facts about this incident that took place at Saturday's March for Life. And he's changed his version of events following the release of that video, which debunked his earlier accounts. But he's still misrepresenting facts. Now, Phillips originally told the Washington Post the students swarmed him while he was trying to leave the Indigenous Peoples March scheduled for the same day. And Phillips originally said one student, who's now identified as Nick Sandman, blocked his path from leaving as he tried to do so. And as you all know by now, Phillips' original account was uncritically accepted by national media outlets and just exploded online in combination with this selectively edited video that showed Phillips beating his drum in front of Sandman and the group of high school boys. Now, it's getting harder and harder to listen to Nathan Phillips because it turns out the guy is a major liar. Yesterday, we reported on the fact that he was not, as he claimed to be, a veteran of the Vietnam War. And he's been using that lie to raise funding for a documentary about himself. And it also turns out that his claim that he was a recon ranger in the Marines is also fake. According to his discharge papers, he was a refrigerator mechanic, and he was cited for being AWOL 3 times. And after 4 years of service, he was discharged as a private. So he may have been in the Marines, but he wasn't a very good Marine here. Now, over at the Pine Ridge Reservation of South Dakota, they're denouncing him. He's been called a liar and a criminal by the Pine Ridge Reservation. Apparently his Native American name is Red Cloud. So he's just being denounced everywhere. Now, some of the media has decided there is a wrong to be made right here. Tucker Carlson interviewed Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin about the Covington kids, and Tucker always does good work there. Trey Gowdy came on the debate. He was on TV with that. And Glenn Beck did a brilliant job of putting together the timeline of what actually did happen at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. on Friday, January 18th, 2019. when the black Hebrew Israelites and Native American Indians came to protest, and the high school students were basically, they were standing there to wait for the bus to take them back to Kentucky. They weren't doing anything about that. Now, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders has criticized the media in an interview Tuesday night on Hannity. That's last night. Yeah. Following that pushback on the BuzzFeed bombshell report and the debacle surrounding the students and the revelation that it was completely staged and completely made up. These students did not initiate the confrontation. Over at USA Today, their deputy editorial page editor came on out and said, when it turns out the Covington kid's main accuser is a liar, it makes it hard to accept his interpretation of events. On the other side, there are still liberals who are pushing the narrative. White people bad, white people bad. Go screaming, hats first, into the wood chipper. And you've got these liberal celebrities, including Kathy Griffin, Disney producer Jack Morrissey, Ron Perlman. Well, they're trying to delete their furious tweets about the Covington teens now that the story has been blown. But everybody had a huge rush to judgment. And throughout it all, something that a lot of people have picked up on is the fact that Twitter seemed not to have a problem with people who wanted the Covington kids to die. You know, Twitter bans people for all kinds of things, but all of this raging, frothing at the mouth hate directed at these kids who did absolutely nothing wrong other than be white and wear a MAGA hat, Twitter let them stand. Now, again, a lot of these people who made those tweets, they're now deleting them as well, that they should. But I think some apologies are due here. Over on CNN, Isaac Bailey, who's an opinion writer, is now claiming that merely wearing a MAGA hat or any hat supporting President Trump is a clear sign you're a racist or you support racism. And racist against who? We're not sure. But that's apparently CNN's opinion. That if you support President Trump, you are a racist. That's really getting on out there. Fortunately, it's not working because according to a story that came out earlier today, MAGA hats are becoming a hot fashion trend among teens all over America. So there's the pushback. Now that the video of the confrontation has come on out and revealed that the kids did not initiate it, liberals are going through the video looking for anything else that they can point at and say, oh, see, this is racist here. And apparently they spotted some of the Covington boys making a gesture and said immediately, oh, it's a white power gesture. See, they're racist. It was a white power gesture. And it's a gesture that secretly informs everyone that you are a racist. Actually, no. This hand signal was a 4chan prank that doesn't really exist in the real world. The hand gesture is also the symbol for making a three-pointer in basketball. So this is getting worse and worse. All right, here comes the pushback. The Kentucky Attorney General is working on charging tweeters of violence against the Covington students, and I hope they've archived all those tweets before they can be deleted here. And apparently down in Kenton County, Prosecutor Rob Sanders has confirmed that there are now multiple investigations into some of these Twitter users who made terroristic threats against the Covington students and against the Covington Catholic High School. And he says they're going to be pushing for jail time because it was clearly terroristic threats and incitement to murder. All righty, out in Los Angeles, there's an attorney, Robert Barnes, and he's reached out to the Covington Catholic High School students and offered to represent them for free in suing the New York Times and other corporate media outlets for their vicious defamatory stories, and that's exactly what the media did. Shortly after making that offer, the lawyer received a bomb threat. So this is definitely spinning out of control. But the bottom line here is the corporate media was caught pushing the narrative before they even had any of the facts. They just went with it. Oh, we've got another story. White people bad. White people racists. This I'm not really happy about. When this whole situation first erupted, the Catholic Church here in the United States, again, like everybody else, they jumped to the conclusion that the Catholic boys were to blame, and condemnations came on out all across the country, from bishops, priests, nuns, and so forth. And the bishop and school administrator of the Covington Catholic High School issued apologies, saying, "We apologize for how our kids behaved." Since the story has been debunked, they have not retracted those apologies. And now this school administrator has barred the kids from speaking to the media in order to defend themselves. They're sort of treating it like it's another child molestation scandal. Nobody talk about anything. We're just going to pretend that it's going away here. If I were the parents of those kids, I would be thinking about pulling them out of that school. We'll be right back after these few words. Okay, I'm not hearing music. Okay, we seem to have a little bit of a technical glitch. We're supposed to be in a commercial break here now, but I'm just going to keep on talking. Okay, the top U.S. diplomat for European affairs has announced his resignation. The public excuse for it is to spend time with family, which is kind of a catch-all excuse. That when officials resign and they don't want to say what the real reason was, oh, I want to spend more time with my family. But he's the top diplomat in charge of European affairs. He's resigning from the State Department next month, creating a key vacancy at a time when European leaders are questioning Trump's commitment to historic alliances. So maybe the kitchen just got a little bit too hot for him here. Oh, there's the music now. Okay, we'll be right back after this break.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And over at Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton is out there basically saying, you know, we already have one corrupt Clinton dossier, meaning the Christopher Steele dossier. We don't want a Mueller anti-Trump dossier. It's time to basically shut it down. Well, if that story about the leaked version of the final report is true, there's nothing in it anyway, except rumor and innuendo. And Fitton may have a point, that the final report may say, we found absolutely nothing, but we're pretty sure that there, you know, if we had more time and money, we'd find it. But again, we're just seeing this tsunami of lies that is being flung at us from all directions by the government and the corporate media, including this recent story about the Covington kids. Anyway, let's talk about the economic news here. Apparently, the median age of the super rich is getting younger and younger, probably from all the tech startups who become instant millionaires here. Meanwhile, 1 in 3 Americans right now aren't sure their next credit card purchase will go through. Apparently, all the cards are maxed out, and they're just skating on by. Everybody's just skating on by. We had that caller earlier in the show who said for a lot of Americans, the crash is already here. Now, apparently, Switzerland and Iran are developing a payment channel to bypass U.S. sanctions. And that is a good thing, I think. Over at Pacific Gas and Electric, they're preparing for bankruptcy. The lawsuits from those California fires are definitely going to sink the country. And they've secured $5.5 billion in something that's called debtor in possession financing. And I'm not sure what that means, other than that whoever is doing the financing is going to allow PG&E to basically continue to operate the utility. And there may be a certain practicality in that bringing in all new people and training them up would involve a certain amount of time. But basically, this article, which came on out from Blacklisted News, is saying, how can a company that is going to default on all of its debts and obligations, how do they qualify for an additional $5.5 billion in debt? Okay, we're going to take a break here for station identification. We'll be back with hour number 3 after these few words.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. This product is superb. I have been taking it for about a year now, and I can feel my cardiovascular system run like a Swiss watch. I definitely recommend this product for anyone that has high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart palpitations, A+. It's potent, but it works. I have been waking up for the past 3 years with numb hands, and a week into using Extendivite, my numb hands seem to have cleared up. My circulation was off, and now it's back on track. So I'm happy. I feel so energized, and I have my husband on it now. My mother-in-law has cholesterol problems, so I bought her a bottle as well. Thank you so much. Love the product. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're still talking about the economic news. And apparently over in Japan, the Bank of Japan has cut its inflation forecast, but maintained its massive stimulus program, with Governor Haruhiko Kuroda warning of growing risks to the economy from trade protectionism and faltering global demand. In other words, he's basically saying nobody's buying the products. And I think the comment about protectionism is a dig at the United States, even though Japan is not the target of Donald Trump's tariff wars here. But apparently the trade war between China and the United States is adding to strains on the world's third largest economy and undermining efforts to foster durable growth. So again, the downside of globalism. If somebody in Europe sneezes, the rest of the world gets the cold here. Over in San Francisco, tech giant Mark Benioff is basically slamming his city as a train wreck for the homelessness crisis, and says that tech companies like his own are to blame. Now, Benioff is the 54-year-old founder of cloud-based software company Salesforce, and it's basically, he's calling out tech firms for creating the wealth disparity problem in Silicon Valley. San Francisco has more than 7,500 people living on the streets as last counted in 2017. And there is tremendous wealth inequality out there. By the way, when Claire and I were still driving that Honda and we were just being very gentle with it, we hardly ever went into Honolulu. And we had occasion to go into Honolulu about a week ago. And it was the first time we'd been there in many, many months, and we were shocked at how many homeless people we saw. So the problem is not going away there. Okay, for those of you who are crypto fans here, it turns out Bitcoin is not the decentralized currency that everybody likes to claim it is. Apparently, just 1,000 accounts control 85% of all Bitcoins in the world, and that's enough concentrated power to rig market swings to skim profits from the masses. And that potential for fraud and rigging is one of the reasons why I was never a big fan of Bitcoins here. Talking about migration and the refugee situation, apparently there is a new caravan approaching the U.S. border, and apparently Mexico is easing their passage with what's called a transit visa, where they're basically saying, yeah, come across the border and get up to the U.S. border, and good luck there. But the latest wave of migrants is arriving. There are already 3,000 people, mostly from Honduras, that have been basically camped out 3 months in Tijuana, waiting for a humanitarian visa to get into the United States of America. Now, over in Tulare County, an illegal immigrant has been given a sentence of, and I'm not kidding, 401 years in prison for raping an entire family. 39-year-old man sentenced to prison for several violent sex crimes. And apparently this individual, his name is Serta, had prior convictions for felony domestic violence and criminal threats, and apparently was just not a nice person. Why was he allowed in this country? Why was he not deported here? Here's a little statistic, and this is to annoy and anger your liberal friends here. Okay? The liberals want to grab the guns, but they want open borders here. Mass shooting deaths in 2018 killed 68 Americans, and that's a tragedy. Illegal immigrants murdered 2,000 people in that same period of time, and the corporate media is silent. Just think about that one for a while. Mass shooting deaths, 68 Americans killed. Illegal immigrants, 2,000 Americans killed. Just keep that figure in your mind there. All righty. Again, at Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton is out there saying it's time to call your senators and congressmen and let them know what you think about the border wall. Area code 202-224-3121. And Fitton is saying the calls do have an impact. And I certainly hope that's true and we're not all wasting our time. But again, Petty Pelosi, she is absolutely adamant. She's going to show Trump that she's boss. Remember that ridiculous comment she made in that New York Times interview about 2 weeks ago that the Constitution says she's on the same level as the president? Apparently she really believes that. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Apparently the government is getting ready to build a massive national DNA database. And President Trump signed the Rapid DNA Act into law. The courts have ruled police can take your DNA if you've been arrested but not convicted of a crime. And of course, police agencies are just itching to get their hands on this new crime-fighting gadget. And it's another reminder we're being treated like livestock. We have no more privacy. But the biggest concern I have with this is whether or not their little rapid DNA machine is going to work. We know that there have been major problems with the field drug testing kits that have led to false arrests. There was a story we had, I think, just a week ago where a pair of identical twins, got all of these different DNA testing kits from 23andMe and Ancestry and 5 or 6 of them, and they sent in their DNA, and the results they got back should have indicated they were identical twins. They didn't. All over the place. All over the place. So those tests are not accurate yet. And they want to rush, again, a possibly flawed technology into use as quickly as they can. Over in New York, we were talking about this reproductive health bill, which authorizes abortions up to the moment of birth. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has signed it. It is now the law in New York. And I think that is absolutely disgusting. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Still seeing a backlash from Gillette's ad. And the joke running around town right now is, you know, how has the Gillette ad changed you? And the reply is, I'm switching to Schick. So there's this article over at 12160 where students are out there saying, oh, we hate toxic masculinity. You know, toxic masculinity is bad. Really? What is it? Can you define it? And no, they can't. It's just the latest liberal buzzword, toxic masculinity. Now, there's a watch company that came on out with a counter commercial. We had it linked to whatreallyhappened.com, I think only yesterday. You can scroll down to the lower pages and still see it. And they basically came on out saying, you know, what is a man? And they're showing video clips of men being men in the positive sense. Firefighters, police officers, first responders, carpenters, builders, and across it, they're putting the statistics about how men are overwhelmingly the victim of workplace accidents. Most of the homeless are men. They're trying to balance out the image with this, against this attack on being masculine. And this isn't the first time this was done. Back during the 1990s, the militant feminists were out there saying that men were being too manly. And, they were talking about metrosexuals, which my response was, what, somebody's having sex with a bus? And there was a book that came out, I think it was about then. It was called Real Men Don't Eat Quiche. And it was a very humorous response to this attempt to feminize men at the same time women were being told, be more aggressive, be more manlike. Again, getting back to New York, apparently there is a law that says homeowners have a duty to run and hide if possible rather than confront home invaders with force. Now, this is directly contradictory to laws in many other states which are called the castle laws, meaning a man's home is his castle. And apparently there was this homeowner who defended his home and his family from home intruders, and the Queens District Attorney is going to prosecute him. And the indictment states that the homeowner had intent to cause serious physical injury to Shamel Shavuot, causing his death. That is absolutely a travesty. What are they trying to do? Protect the criminals? It seems like it. I mean, in my point of view, anti-gun is pro-crime. This country's really going crazy. Apparently, there is this lesbian transgender couple, and they have announced a plan to transition their 5-year-old son into a girl. Now, Greg Rogers and his partner, Jody Rogers, were both born female. Greg medically transitioned to male at 16 years old. The couple identifies as being straight, and they share custody of Jody's 5-year-old Jaden. Jaden was born a boy, but has worn dresses for the past year. Now, Greg and Jody say they plan to schedule the medical procedures to transition Jaden to female. I think that's absolutely obscene. I think that's child abuse. I think it's child endangerment. I think if ever there was a case for Child Protective Services to come on with an intervention, this is going to be it. Of course, the liberals are going to scream, we have, gender is fluid and should have freedom. Now, if Jaden grows up and decides for himself, this is what he wants, I'm okay with that. But for parents to basically mutilate their own kid for the sake of a political ideology, I think it's absolutely obscene. Anyways, we're coming up here on the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl is, the showplace for football. It's also commercials. The most expensive, best produced commercials are shown on Super Bowl. And back when I worked in commercial production, that was always an honor when one of our commercials was shown on the Super Bowl. And that's basically the only time I actually watched the Super Bowl. I'm not a big fan of football ever since high school, where I was photographer for the school newspaper, and I got tackled at a game, and it broke the camera. But apparently CBS has refused to air a commercial for medical marijuana. And this is all legal. We're talking legal medical marijuana, and CBS is saying, absolutely not, absolutely not. And just think about how many ads for alcohol you're going to see on that Super Bowl. And, of course, they're playing to these viewers, these football fans who are very often they're binge drinking throughout the day. But ads for medical marijuana to treat glaucoma or improve the quality of life for suffering military veterans, no, that CBS says we can't do that. We can't do that at all. All right, so let's talk a little bit about human-caused global warming. The Niagara Falls have frozen over. And they're basically, the northeastern U.S. is still dealing with this massive freeze, wind chill temperatures reaching almost minus 40 degrees centigrade. And that is really intense here. So let's talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was out there earlier this week raising eyebrows with this claim that if we don't address climate change, the world is going to end in 12 years. And people are asking, does she really believe that? Has she fallen for the hoax? Has she fallen for the divine doctrine of St. Al of the Gore? Or does she think that most Americans believe it and she's simply using that as a campaign tool? But they're still pushing it. They're still pushing. And again, you know, they're trying to rebrand. They're not saying global warming anymore. They're back to saying climate change. Well, again, there's a nothing burger there. Climate is always changing. It always has, long before humans were here. It will go on changing after humans are gone. That's the way nature works. There is no balance of nature, as romantic as that sounds. Nature is chaos. Nature is change. Nature is basically careening off the walls as it travels down the hallway of time. New species evolve, other species go extinct. That's the way it works. Climate is dominated by solar output, which right now is very low and looks to be getting lower, and the changing orbit and orientation of the orbit of Earth. That's what does it. That's where we get these regular ice ages versus the interglacials. And we're in an interglacial right now, and we might be headed out of it. In fact, probably we are. But that's the reality. And like any other politician, ooh, climate, it's a crisis, it's a crisis. Vote for me, I'll save you from the evil climate. And by the way, somebody wrote him with a really good suggestion. It's time to stop calling carbon dioxide a toxic pollutant and call it what it is. It's plant food. That's what carbon dioxide is. It's plant food. Plants need it. If you get rid of carbon dioxide, plants wither and eventually die. And by the way, science has confirmed that as CO2 levels rise, plants grow faster and bigger. They suck more of the CO2 in. It's a self-regulating system. There is no crisis. All right, we're going to talk about computers here right now. Over in Russia today, they're talking about this hysteria over Huawei. And again, there's no definitive proof against Huawei that they have done anything wrong. And what this is coming on down to is, again, it's the money. Because Huawei manufactures good cell phones at a lower cost. And people, especially in this economy, they're looking at the price of an iPhone 10, anywhere between $700 and $1,000, and then they're going to look over at these Huawei phones that are only a few hundred, and they're going to say, well, I'm going to go this way. So it's about trying to keep competitors out of the American market. It's protectionism. And the other issue, of course, is the fact that Huawei has invested quite a bit in the 5G technology. 5G is something that has pretty much been developed over in China. And if the U.S. goes to 5G, there are going to be, you know, intellectual property payments will have to be made. And the telecoms don't want to do that. That's why we've been seeing all this ridiculous fear-mongering about 5G is going to melt your brain and 5G will kill you and 5G is going to, you know, leave rings around your bathtubs here. So that's really what's going on here. Over on Facebook, apparently they've been ordered to unseal a trove of documents related to a 2012 lawsuit against Facebook in which children often unwittingly racked up massive bills on their parents' accounts playing games on the site. United States District Court on Monday gave Facebook 10 days to file unredacted documents in response to a response from Reveal, the news agency for the Center of Investigative Reporting. And apparently what happened is Facebook had these games out there, and they failed to provide an effective way for unsuspecting parents to dispute the massive charges, which were sometimes even in the thousands of dollars, or to even block the games. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Extendivite, made from garlic, cayenne, bilberry, hawthorn, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle, feeds our body with the nutrients we need to keep healthy. Just listen to what Arthur had to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I could use this about, 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again, so I placed another order because this was the only thing that ever worked. I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product. Thank you very much.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, Google is getting ready to block ad blockers in Chrome. And I think for a lot of people, that will probably be when they stop using Chrome. And Of course, Google is a web ad giant, and they don't like the fact that people don't like the ads, and they want to use ad blockers. A lot of people are using ad blockers primarily to prevent malvertising. And probably if the online ad industry cleaned itself up a little bit, we wouldn't have this issue. But apparently Google's attitude is, you will look at the advertising. Sig heil, sig heil, sig heil, sig heil. Okay, now then. So, yeah. It's kind of like the telemarketers. They keep on calling. You know, the do not call list is a joke. And all they have to do is have their call centers located somewhere else. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and reopen the phone lines for the rest of the show here because I got through the really important news that I felt needed to get on out there today. By the way, that early report where Russia warned Israel no more spontaneous airstrikes into Syria, apparently there was a slight translation. It's not spontaneous, it's arbitrary. This was just on Fox News where they're saying no more arbitrary attacks on Syria. And I don't know what... how Russia plans to back that up, but it's getting tense. We are hovering at the edge of World War III. Getting on back to computers and phones here, Samsung is going to launch its most expensive phone ever. The Galaxy S10 could cost a staggering 1,400 British pounds, but Samsung is also going to release a cheaper light model as a rival for the iPhone XR. By the way, I saw an ad the other day. If you turn in your old iPhone, you can get the iPhone, the top level one. The price is now down to just under $800. So they're not selling. They're already discounting these things. Speaking of iPhones, if you have one, you need to update your iOS now to 12.1.3. This fixes a major bug that allowed hackers to remotely control FaceTime calls. I'm not sure why somebody would want to do that. But apparently it was something that was in there. And again, this hacking situation is just out of control here. By the way, if you use your web browser to go to some of these sort of customer review sites, you know, you need to be a little bit skeptical because, as it turns out, a lot of businesses manipulate product reviews, restaurant reviews, even reviews of a plastic surgery business. I can imagine that probably there's a public relations firm where that's their specialty. You know, for a fee, we'll go into all the social media that talks about your place of business, and we'll arrange for the bad reviews to get erased, and or we'll simply flood it with good reviews. And I'll give you one example. If you go on over to RottenTomatoes.com and you read the reviews about movies, and you can tell the genuine people from the Planted Chills, because the Planted Chills are always writing like they dream of being a professional film critic for the media someday. Google has been hit with a $57 million fine by France's data watchdog for its murky use of personal information. Apparently, this comes under the EU's new General Data Protection Regulations. And so Google was handed this record fine for failing to provide transparent and easily accessible information on its data consent policies. Google was accused of making it too difficult for users to understand and manage preferences on how their personal information is used, in particular with regards to targeted advertising. And targeted advertising is kind of a weird thing, and I know it's hyped and you know it's the buzzword, but I do a lot of research for this website, and I'll visit a lot of websites and do a lot of search terms that don't personally interest me, and then I'll get the ads for them. The other thing that doesn't work is when I've gone out to buy something or bought something online, I'll get tons of ads for exactly the same thing. Do they think I'm going to buy another one? Anyway, story coming out of IntelliHub. 82% of Americans are right to think artificial intelligence is more harmful than helpful. And apparently, artificial intelligence has now made its way into the world of malware. There is now malware out there using artificial intelligence to basically help it hide from antivirus programs. Okay, we got to take a break for commercials. We've got a couple of people waiting on the phones, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll-free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Don't regret growing old. It's a privilege denied to many. Heart disease is taking our youth from us. Young people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond are dying needlessly. One of the hardest messages I've ever had to deliver is to convince people that something natural like Extendivite should be taken as a preventative measure. I'm sure you heard an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Extendivite is that ounce. Take Extendivite for 1 year and see what your doctor has to say and how much better you feel. Herbs take time to address the problem. It took years of life to have a problem. Give Extendivite 1 year to fix the problem. Don't wait until it's too late. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or visit us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We've got a couple of callers waiting on the line. We're going to start with Chris in Florida. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Google Chrome, a good substitute, is Avast Secure Browser. If you haven't heard of that, it's based on Google Chrome, but it seems to be more secure and much faster, noticeably. So if you want to check that out. Avast Secure Browser. It's part of the Avast antivirus software, though you don't need to install the antivirus software in order to use Avast Secure Browser. And you mentioned that you sometimes search for things that do not interest you. I would assume that's because you want to build a false profile that causes a human rather than AI to have to review your profile, of things that supposedly interest you, that is often sold and marketed, and of course, it causes more human power to have to review that and then devalue.
There's no intention. There's no intention on my part to do anything like that. It is simply an artifact of doing the job that I do here, which is to basically research certain things, look at certain things as part of the stories that go up on the website or here on the radio show.
I see. So being a good generalist then. Well, I suggest doing it just for the sake of devaluing the profile, just like giving out bad emails. Then that email will not be sold once they find out that it's valueless. Well, if you build a false profile of interest and they try to sell it, they find that their return on investment isn't very good. So then your false profile becomes a lot less worthwhile to them.
Well, I think it's done on a mass level. I don't think they really look at whether an individual email or profile, what it might be worth. They just take them all in and mass fire and spam everybody, and just average out the gains and losses. But again, we have no more privacy in this world right now, and efforts to try and get some kind of legislation to take back some of our privacy from all of this data mining. It's not going to get through Congress because, again, Congress is getting lots of money from all these tech billionaires. Okay?
Well, that's true. All right, Mike, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And we're going to switch to Art off the grid. Aloha, Art. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I thought I was going to get through the entire broadcast without one single phone call, but you made that impossible. You started talking about that whole dang story about the abortion law that Cuomo signed in.
That's
yeah. I'm fitting to tell on myself. There was a time in this country, and I remember these days, when it was not unusual to see an adult step up to defend children. That whole deal, what we saw go on at the Lincoln Memorial, when I was a teenager, that would have never happened because the adults there, whether they knew us or not, would have intervened and said, hey, back off. That's a child. You don't do that. Plain and simple. And it would have been brought to the attention. But no, we can have these black guys stand up there slinging all these racial slurs, and they're using the Bible. They're using the Bible to justify their action. Now, I want to know how any religion that claims to try to convert people can justify that kind of behavior, and how does that help your cause? It doesn't. And so that brings us now with the whole issue of children. I remember several years back in 1994, or 1996, I'm sorry, my niece was killed by a drunk driver who had no license, stolen tags, no insurance, no nothing. And he walked with 6 months in jail for no license. He didn't ever suffer any penalties for killing my 10-year-old niece, snuffing her life out. What does that tell you about the quality and how we value our children? And now we're talking about abortion all the way up until birth? Are you kidding me? That is plain outright murder. Period. End of discussion. There is no way to justify this. And I'm telling you right now, America, if you don't step up, start pulling your children out of school, here's where I'm going to start. The board op one day wanted to chastise me a little bit because of my tone sometimes when I call in. Well, you know what? I don't care because I'm pissed off. And you, America, you're pissing me off more and more every day. I'm getting tired of going out here and talking to people or trying to talk to people and being ridiculed at every turn while I'm watching my country go completely to crap. and nobody wants to step up. You know what? If I had been in Washington when those people started attacking those teens, I would have went to jail, because the instant I heard one man talk about punching somebody in the face, I would have been all over him like ugly on a freaking ape. You people disgust me. I can't eat. I've been walking, Mike, I've been looking for months trying to find a MAGA hat or a Make America Great Again t-shirt, but I don't have a credit card, so I can't order offline, and nobody does COD anymore. I am trying to get out there and trying to get people to try that crap with me, and I will show you toxic masculinity.
I'm wondering if you can make an online purchase using a gift card, because that would be a way around that problem. You go down to the local supermarket, you get an all-purpose gift card for like $25 or something. I mean, it's got the number on it, and it works just like another credit card. You know something? I need to research that before you do that, but that might be a way around your problem so that you could get your hat.
Yeah, because I want to get out there. I want to see some jackass walk up to me while I'm sitting in a restaurant trying to have my lunch and try that garbage with me like they try with the senators. I want to be standing somewhere minding my own business and have some idiot walk up and get in my face with a little tom-tom. I'll show you how to beat on that tom-tom when I wrap it around your freaking neck. Now, people want to get upset with me because I talk like this, but you know what? This is toxic masculinity at its best. And I am fed up with this crap. In America, you better pull your head out of them dank, dark, stanky places and start getting a clue, because we ain't got much time left. It's all but gone.
Well, I think it is gone. I think we're just in a holding period here. We're waiting for it all to fall apart. And again, this increasing factionalization within the government, this stunt that Nancy Pelosi has pulled to basically deny the State of the Union, shows just how badly factionalized our government has become. I don't see this nation holding itself together much longer. I mean, it's being torn apart by all these competing agendas, you know. So stay calm here. Meanwhile, I'm looking at a website here called giftcards.com that says yes, you can use Visa gift cards online. And apparently there are some steps you have to go through, but you can use a gift card to make an online purchase.
That makes it simpler.
Okay.
And one more thing, Mike, I'll get on because I know you got a couple more callers. Reading an article today, House Democrat votes possible $5.7 billion in border funding, but here's the catch. He wants to, this is Mr. Clyburn, Democrat out of... I can't remember where he's from, but Mr. Clyburn, he wants to use this $5.7 billion for more drones, X-rays, sensors, and Border Patrol agents, but not for the physical barrier. Well, here's a problem with that. They're already doing it. It doesn't work, and you want to spend $5.7 billion for drones, X-rays, sensors, and Border Patrol agents, which in the long run cost more money every year just to run them, to maintain them, to repair them, and so on. So you're talking about continuous funding for something that is absolutely ridiculous. When you take that 5.7, put up a physical barrier, and how many years is that thing going to stand before anybody has to worry about doing anything to it? I mean, this is the level of stupidity that we have in Washington.
Well, again, it's politics. It's all about scoring political points here. And the fact of the matter is that even if Trump gets the $5.7 billion to build the wall, it's not going to reach all the way across the border. All it's going to do is change the places where the illegal immigrants are crossing in. It's estimated that it would cost at least $50 billion to build a proper border wall all across the southern border from the Rio Grande to San Diego. And you're absolutely right, though. Once it's built, you don't have to have, much in the way of yearly upkeep. But again, this whole idea of preventing the wall. And again, there was actually a bill passed that funded the construction of 700 miles of border wall, which is a significant portion of the distance the final wall would have to go. And only 33 miles of the wall was built. And I want somebody to explain to me, why was construction stopped and where did all that money go?
Really. Anyway, thanks, Mike. Keep it up, man.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Okay, getting on back to computers and so forth and so on. Over in Japan, the Hena-na Hotel opened, or basically back in 2015. They billed themselves as the most efficient hotel in the world and had basically almost all robot staff. But apparently, they've had to fire half their robot staff because they're just not doing a good job. So if you're worried about automation taking your job, maybe it's not coming as soon as you might think. But the hotel, I mean, it basically prided itself on an all-robot staff. The staff couldn't do it here. We touched on this yesterday when we were getting into the discussion about the stash of rare earth elements up there in Afghanistan. There is an article that came on out in the Daily Mail, Are Mobile Phones Endangered? And scientists have basically created a list of the dwindling elements and chemicals needed for our modern gadgets, and they're running out. And some materials commonly used in mobile phones and other gadgets are listed under serious threat. That includes gallium, arsenic, yttrium, and silver. I'm sure they'll find something else as well, but again, and it underscores the ridiculousness of this idea that every time a new phone comes on out, you have to rush to buy it. And that kind of obvious overconsumption, of course, has been pushed by the tech manufacturers because they make more money. Oh, you don't want to be using that iPhone 7 that's so old tech. You know, we've got the new iPhone 10. No, the iPhone 7's working just fine. You know, unless Apple downloads some software to slow it down, which apparently iPhone has been accused of doing here. So let's talk about some of the medical news here. Apparently, over in the Journal of the American Medical Association, on April 3rd, 2013, there was this article talking about statins. Now, you know, statins are marketed, and statins are now being basically prescribed as a preventative. Even if you don't have any disease, you should be taking statins anyway. Statins have side effects. In fact, there's some indication statins could actually cause more harm than good. But this analysis that was done back in 2010 combined the results of 11 studies and found that taking statins did not lower the death rate for people who did not have heart disease. It's all about marketing. It's all about the money. Now, here's a weird one. The CDC is now admitting that there is a chemical, glutaraldehyde, that is deliberately being added to vaccines. The problem is this chemical is toxic. It's used as a disinfectant, a tanning agent. It's a preservative in cosmetics. And apparently it's also used in embalming solutions. So why is it in there? What is it supposed to be doing? Okay. For those of you dealing with depression, and in this day and age, I imagine that's probably a large number of you, there's a study published in Phytotherapy Research found that curcumin actually outperforms Prozac for reducing symptoms of depression. And in their study, patients who'd been diagnosed with major depressive disorder were given a 6-week course of treatment of 20 milligrams of fluoxetine, which is the main ingredient in Prozac, 1,000 milligrams of curcumin, a combination of both, or a placebo. And the patients were then evaluated using the 17-item Hamilton Depression Rating Scale. And the researchers found the combination group performed better than the group of Prozac alone. And curcumin does not have the side effect of suicidal ideation or other toxic effects. See, that is a problem with Prozac. It's a problem with a lot of these psychiatric medications. They can get you thinking seriously about ending your life. Okay, down in the Congo, and it's time for this story to get a little bit more coverage. Experts are predicting that the 600 plus Ebola cases are going to double. And apparently the Guardian reported Friday saying it's doubling, very possible it could double again. Yeah, that's the way infectious diseases work. And now the concern is that Ebola patients are moving toward a trading hub home to 1 million inhabitants. This is the major city of Goma. I took a look at it in Google Earth. A lot of highways going in and out of there, an airport. If somebody infected but not symptomatic gets there, it's going to be a problem. In fact, one health official said, if Ebola makes it to Goma, all bets are off in terms of being able to control the outbreak. So this could be the nasty one here. And again, another article here about how glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, is being sprayed on crops like wheat, oats, edible beans, and other crops just before the harvest. Sometimes it's even sprayed on the produce sitting there in the produce section at the supermarket because it acts as a preservative. But don't forget, this has been named a probable human carcinogen by the World Health Organization, and it's still in use. We'll be right back.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AirOutfitting.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Last segment in our program today here, and getting on back to Venezuela, because that situation is just, it's escalating rapidly. Apparently, Facebook and Instagram have removed President Maduro's verification sign. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but it's obviously intended to be a slap in the face, or maybe it's to prevent him from using social media to reach out to his own people here. Meanwhile, Russia Today is reporting that the European Union has come down on the side of Juan Guaido, I think is how it's pronounced. And here's a very interesting comment. President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, tweeted out, "Unlike Maduro, the Parliamentary Assembly, including Juan Guaido, have a democratic mandate from Venezuelan citizens." Now just think about that for a minute, because this entire push to get Maduro out is the claim that the recent Venezuelan elections were illegitimate and rigged. And here you have the EU saying, oh yes, we believe the elections were honest when it came to the parliament. So you can see this is just another ginned up situation. This is just utterly, utterly insane. All right, little bit of maybe good science news. If you're familiar with the story of Antony and Cleopatra, they got together. They challenged Caesar Augustus for control of the Roman Empire. They lost. And rather than submit to capture and the resulting humiliation, they committed suicide. Mark Antony on his sword, Cleopatra supposedly with a poisonous snake here. Now, the Roman historian Plutarch said Caesar allowed the two to be buried together, but their tomb was never found. That may be about to change. Egyptologist Zahi Hawass, and he's Egypt's top archaeologist, basically thinks he's discovered where the tomb is located. And apparently he's found bits of compelling evidence. He's already found 10 mummies, coins, fragment of a mask with a cleft chin, which is a Roman feature, not an Egyptian one. And he believes the site near the Mediterranean Sea does contain the tomb. And so he's basically building media support to continue the excavation, and I wish him a lot of luck. Before that whole Egyptian color revolution, Zahi Hawass and I corresponded briefly regarding some questions and theories I had about Hatshepsut. And I wish him luck, and I hope he finds the tomb. I'm talking about the crowning achievement of his life, to find the tomb of Antony and Cleopatra. So that would be a really, really good thing. Okay. As you know, going on back to the Apollo-Soyuz spaceflight, NASA and Russia have had this ongoing partnership in space. It may be unraveling. And apparently the problem is Dmitry Rogozin, who has been appointed to lead the Russian space corporation Roscosmos in May of last year. He's overtly political. He's basically not sympathetic toward the West. And he's basically not indicating that he really wants to work with NASA, even though NASA still has to rely on the Russian Soyuz spacecraft to reach the International Space Station, and of course, Russian rocket engines. All right, there's the music. Time for me to get out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure there's going to be lots of interesting things he's going to share with you. Please take what you learn here and at the website, share them with everybody that you know. Keep RBN alive. Tell 5. Tell all your friends and family about whatreallyhappened.com and the Republic Broadcasting Network. We need to build our audience and get the word out. So thank you very much for all that you do for us. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. As most of you know, my regular listeners, I offer energy cleaners for sale at my website. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, go to my website, thelibertyman.com,